What's going on, everybody? Geek here. Just finished up the podcast and we talked a little bit about Destiny. I thought I'd summarize it as the topic was pretty good. And we had to talk about the season and we had to talk about the new dungeon. And fortunately, it wasn't all bells and whistles. I think the dungeon is really well done. It's not overly long. It's not short. It's going to be, I believe, farmable. Had some good little puzzles-ish. Not gimmicky, just puzzles to work your way down, built upon everything. Well, you work up and then down, spoiler alert. And you have 3 bosses, roughly, that you have to deal with. So we did enjoy it, and we'll be farming it. We knocked out some of the collectibles and everything else. However, I wish I could say that the overall dungeon experience was fantastic. It unfortunately, for the roughly first 20 some odd minutes it was, and then for the next 3 hours it was not. And then it got better. But my understanding, there's still some people having some errors and everything else. So in order to understand that, we do need to talk about what happened last week and what happened at reset. And some people said, hey, you're giving them too much crap on day 1 of reset. Well, no, I don't think so, because it repeated itself today on day 1 of dungeon. Now, let's make it perfectly clear. I've invested hundreds of dollars into Destiny and Destiny 2, and I have invested thousands upon thousands of hours between the 2 platforms. I have a passion for Destiny 2. But as I have decided, I have come to the point where as a consumer, I have had enough of the disrespect that they give to the player base, especially the loyal ones, especially the consumers, aka the people that have paid money. Now, the season could be free, right? If you invested in the season pass for expediting and have extra loot, then it costs money. They have an obligation to make sure the season is playable. Also, the dungeon is not free. That is paid for content. It requires a dungeon key that is account-wide, but it requires, nonetheless, a dungeon key which has to be purchased. Whether in the deluxe edition or in the dungeon set, whatever, you still have to pay for it. So it's paid for content. It should be properly tested, properly evaluated, and relatively stable and bug-free. Well, this is not the case. I would like to point out from roughly this one here, we can go back to Bungie here. What was it back on? I think it was on the 2nd. They nerfed the Gallahorn seasonal artifact. I said Rose wasn't working on the 6th. There's issues with the seasonal artifact mod. This is when the season went live, mind you, but that's not what we're looking for. We are going to go back a little bit further, as I think they were preparing for the season. And this should have been what I consider the initial red flag. We are investigating issues preventing players from matchmaking with other players in Destiny 2. Please stand by. They recall I was live streaming, and for an entire set of daily bannings across all planets, and including the tower, I didn't have one guardian that I saw anywhere along the way, anywhere on my list. My friends were online, but I couldn't match with them. This went on for hours, okay? For hours. And it wasn't until 12 hours later, the issues causing severe server matchmaking and egregious error codes has been identified and a fix implemented. Destiny 1 and 2 will be brought back online soon. Okay. Issues causing the server maintenance and everything else has been resolved. However, if we went in and we did this on a video, you went and saw, it was still several hours after the implementation before it worked itself out. So there was something there that broke, and they didn't have an immediate response for it. Fast forward to season 19, Season of the Seraph, they're talking about the launch on the 6th. Guess what happens on the 6th? Okay. We have got more errors. Boon's been removed. Rose hand cannon, which was supposed to drop in PvP, pimped is promoted as dropping in PvP, was not dropping in PvP, had to be fixed. And the seasonal artifact, even though we talked about fixing it, removing all those, was broken. And by that, people are like, oh, you're just being critical. And they're like, that happens with regular mods, not the seasonal mods. In the past, over the several seasons, there's been shotgun mods that were going from artifact mod to seasonal mod or regular armor mod, vice versa, and a couple other ones that caused problems where you couldn't equip them. In this case, for me personally, even though I did all the steps that we try to do preventatively to keep that from happening, the advanced scout mod for the class item, even though I unlocked it, was not placeable on any of my armor cloaks. I tried them on these cloaks and I tried them on the artifice cloak where they were supposedly to work. I couldn't even get that to come up. It still doesn't work. We're going on 4 days now. Artifice mod doesn't work. I paid for the season. The seasonal content, I paid for the deluxe. There's an issue there. Getting it take that long to get a resolution or at least an identification of the cause, especially when this recurs every season with the artifact, impacting a group of players, does not make any sense that they don't properly or adequately identify and test this prior to rolling out, which is going to contribute to today's issues, right? And it was brought up in the stream. Did we notice these kind of behaviors when Activision don't them? Activision has a regularly employed and decent standard quality control team. And I'm guessing that, or speculating that when Bungie was owned by Activision, that QA team had a series of tests and procedures that they did to ensure that after the game was going through development and maybe some development testing and everything, that QA team, before it got pushed into a production environment, met some requirements and didn't break the game, as we see happen regularly today. So maybe Bungie doesn't have an adequate Q&A team, or they don't have better procedures, processes and procedures. Either way, it's very apparent. But I was told that I was being too critical. I was watching Datto. Yeah, I'm going to throw Datto under the bus on this one, where he said all these streamers are being too critical of the game, and this is something that has been normal for a long time, and we should be used to it. Now, I'm going to quantify something here. I'm going to qualify it, and I'm going to define it. My concerns do not really surround the lack of content in the game, or the missing content, or the stuff that was removed from the game. That is a totally different subject. Do I think there should be more? Do I think there should be changes? Things that could be made more fun? I did make a different video on that one. You can see that. I'll put a card up here, I think, of Destiny 2. It'll be in there, and I'll probably link it at the end. Anyways, what I'm talking about should never be accepted and should never be fought to the wayside and never should be made light of by the streamers. This is quality control. This is a digital product that somebody in a consumer basis purchased. We aren't free to play. If we're doing dungeons and season passes, we aren't free to play casuals. We're not casual. We are consumers that have paid money. We have and should have rights, expected rights. And the product should be delivered in an expected working standard, not this mentality where most people think when it launches on day one of a new season, what bugs are we going to have? Not if, but what. Same thing for the dungeon. Okay, and if you're thinking what I'm talking about, today, Destiny launched Spire of the Watcher. And, well, unfortunately, 27 minutes after that Spire went live, all blankety blank went loose. My fire team and I were working through lunch, went through, got about 2/3 of the way through. We enjoyed the first part of it. We figured out the puzzles, figured out how to make the circuitry work and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, bam, I got error code Caprese. My two teammates got the same error code. We're like, maybe it's just a one-off, a hiccup or something. We try to queue back in. Guess what? Error code calibracy again. We look at several other streamers, including Glads, and they're getting the same issues. And it gets out of order. It was like an error code roulette, of Russian roulette or whatever. You try to connect, you get a different error code. And all these error codes are a bit misleading. Troubleshoot your network setup. Nope, not my network setup. Rabbit, something on the network error. No, not my network. Problem persists with the guitar. It's your networking setup. No, not my network. And then they try to tell me it was a moderate NAT issue. Nothing to do. Their network error messages or their error code messages, one, need to be redefined. They are misleading and misinformative, and for players that don't know better, or young children, or even young teens that don't know anything about computers, they just come home and they want to play the game. They might start saying, hey, there's something wrong with the network, start trying to reboot the routers, trying to talk to their parents. Even other adult players and stuff might not know any better, and then all of a sudden they're trying to search moderate NAT and everything else, which they might not know about, network address translation. And there's nothing wrong whatsoever with the network. It was functioning just fine before. It's going to function just fine afterwards. However, because Bungie hasn't taken the time to properly define their codes, you get misrepresentation in the information. This is the first exception I take to this issue. And again, I'm going to reflect back to people like Datto saying, let it go. Things like this happen. As long as he's specifically referring to game content and not game stability, bugs, errors, issues, or any of the like, that's fine. They're entitled to their personal opinion. My opinion is they're wrong. I paid for it. Consumers have paid for it. It's about time they get held accountable for the situation and the state of the game. You shouldn't have Twitter feeds like this, where we have 5,899 likes. This means people are out there and generally, it's like they know it, they're working it. Yay! Why, as an IT person, my question is, we have two types of resolutions we typically work at. We address the short-term fix, which is a simple band-aid that gets us back in the game, that gets her back in the product, doing the things, my son says hi, to get things done, to make us be able to do our work if it's in a work environment, or game if it's a gaming environment. Then we have a long-term fix, which we put in place to ensure what happened previously doesn't happen again, or at least limit it as much as possible. Now, they could decide the cost involved on that one is too great, and that they will assume the risk in doing such, and then that will be shouldered by the player community. One, if they choose to do that, they're usually going to have a risk memo or something for that says, hey, look, it's not worth the price, all this other stuff. That's a business thing on the business side of the house. But at least the minimum that should happen is a little bit of transparency. They should let the player base know. Make a formal statement or a post or something along those lines that we can go through. I lost about the first 2 hours. It started building up the frustration. We just wanted to get it done. I had other things to do. But it didn't happen. So I finally got to a rage point where every time it happened, we would get super close to taking the boss out or these other things, and it would just super frustrate. And then all of a sudden it clicked, and it just became a comical thing. This has happened so often, so many times that it's just comical. But it got me thinking a couple of things. So I posted a couple of questions. Honest question. I honestly wonder how many are experiencing these error codes over and over and responding with a controller throw, a headset toss, a desktop slap, maybe breaking their keyboard or something, things like that, because people rage. We all have seen those things. So by not properly testing before pushing to production on the day, they may have triggered that indirectly. Now people are like, well, people lose their temper, then it's on them if they break something. Yeah, it is. But the game should have been properly tested. So I worry and concerned about that one. And then I had to put this in here as a stinging thing because I said it in the past. I said, so how's using the Destiny 2 community to test for errors and bugs working out? We're reactive. We play the game, the errors happen, they now have to react. The reputation hit that they're taking has already been done. Bungie was known for Halo. They were known for Destiny and Destiny 2, amazing games. Anyone I talk to now, I say I'm playing Destiny, and they're like, how are the bugs? Is it still crappy? That is not a good reputation to have as a gaming studio. Okay? And you can argue that point on it, but it is what it is. And it goes to show that they don't have really good testing. Now, I do know they have a machine learning team that they're standing up. They should help address and be able to simulate all these before rolling out. But it does show that they need to dramatically look at their testing platform and try to determine what those causes are instead of laying blame and saying, hey, we're investigating. Go to their Twitter channel, go to the Bungie Help, scroll through it as much as you want. You're going to find this as a common thing. We are investigating. We have identified. We are implementing a fix over and over and over. But they never tell us what they identified. They never tell us what the fix is, only that they're implementing it. And then half the time, the implementation, after they've put it out there, it still takes 4, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours before it's all the way resolved. Accountability goes a long way. If I'm a consumer, I own the product, I'm entitled to know what happened. The other side of the flip of the coin here that I pointed out is what vulnerabilities are introduced to my network, to my home, to my consoles, to my PC by putting code that has been confirmed to be not properly tested. Is it introducing vulnerabilities or exploits that could put my system, my house, or identification at risk? We've seen Rockstar games compromised. GameStop's been compromised. We have seen social media networks like Hive get their servers identified as high risk with their data being pasted out there. Is compromised. Tons of things. There were games disguised as malware in the anti-cheat software. Donovo discovered as spyware malware in the past as well. Trojan, all this stuff. All these things. What risk is put on us? Because they don't want to tell us. They just say it's battle. I trust us. We're good. When I saw Glad get an error message earlier in the stream before crap went down that said BattleEye caused a graphical error. I don't run anything on his gaming system. And they pop these things up. And I know on my system, if I ever see it, they pop them up. They have no business doing certain things. And it really is getting to a point now where the frustration level, it's not franchise fatigue, it's frustration level with players that have accumulated frustration in the standard quality of the game. Not the content of the game. That's, again, a different topic. The quality of the game. Are we playing a beta or are we actually playing a live production game? Seasons come and season goes. This is a new cookie cutter model that they've been doing for a long time. They changed the graphics. The UI relatively stays the same. They changed the artifact. They put new benefit perks on there and remove old perks. It's nothing new. It's nothing game changing. It's the same formula across the board. They should be static. They should be able to do the testing. It says, here's the artifacts from the previous season, the previous season, and the previous season. These are what happened when we changed it last time. This is what happened to the players that took all the mods off. This is what happened to the players that left them on. This is what happened to the players that had off of it, some of it, and da-da-da-da-da. They can run simulations on that. They can do testing on that one. I do not believe they adequately test, and that's what's causing all these problems and causing a lot of people to lose really any type of quality trust in Bungie to provide a quality game. Now, last night we saw the Game Awards, and we were all hyped when we saw that new trailer. Part of it was CGI, cutscenes, and part of it was gameplay. Some of it was a little blended together, but how much of the hype that was drummed up from that trailer got destroyed because 3 hours plus of a dungeon being down, sporadic error codes. And these error codes weren't only keeping us out of the dungeon, they were getting people banned in PvP. You go play PvP match and you get an error code, and all of a sudden you come back and you're like, you left the match too early. Guess what? I'm sorry, you're banned. You don't get to play PvP for 30 minutes. And you do it again and you get banned again, and it just prolongs, and you keep getting these things added to your account that aren't true because of Bungie's poor testing methodology prior to going to a production environment. How do they fix it? Because I was asked, well, if you're going to play, I'm going to give you a solution. Having done this before, all the servers and all the game logs, you have logs, you have data, you have event logs. The servers generate all sorts of things, whether it be event IDs, memory logs, all of this stuff. They could take that in. It's automatically generated, and they can say, hey, look, this is what the data showed from the day before we implemented the server changes. up for 90 days. And then here's what happened today. Take out all the event data that is previously existing, that was identified in prior traffic. So like I have all these event logs that have happened on a regular basis over 90 days. And here's today's data. I'm going to subtract those event types from that data, and this is simplifying it. And what I have left is a new cause. Now I'm going to do my analysis on that, see what like events are, see what the timings are, and match those up to other type of event logs or syst logs or firewall logs or whatever it might be to help me identify whether I have a memory leak or if I have something going on in my system, might be DDoSing my bandwidth on my servers, any of these type of things in the mechanism that could be contributing to that. And then I can more quickly get a Band-Aid on there and then maybe look at a long-term resolution. That's easier said than done, but that's how you take your initial steps to identify the problem. I don't know what they're doing or how they're taking so long to fix it, since this has been multiple seasons and we're still getting error codes like this and it's impacting people and it's not correctly identified. It's never once been on my side. Never once been on any of my friends' sides that had played the game that said you have a networking issue. It's always been on Bungie. Stand by while we implement a fix. They implement the fix and magically everything starts working. So one, I would like to understand what their methodology is for testing for Q&A before it goes to production. And two, I would like to understand why repeated errors continue to repeat themselves, that they're repeatedly identified and remediation is determined. And there should be a resolution. And even if they can't resolve it and prevent it from happening over and over, why is there not a proper workflow in place to address and quickly identify and resolve? As a result of this, we lost all the external APIs. DIM was down, the external companion, the companion app was down, all these things. So gaming got impeded because we don't have that functionality that those platforms provide us inside the game. That's a different topic of itself too. But that's where it is. I raged a little bit. My fire team will tell you I hulked out just a little bit before I again started laughing at it. We waited almost a little over 3 hours. We got our runs in. We went and run a Master Wellspring. Then we ran a King's Fall. We ran another dungeon just to get it done so we could get the pinnacles out of there. I got my Titan left. And people are like, well, if you complain about the game, why are you still playing it? For some stupid reason, people seem to think because I complain about a game doesn't mean I don't want to play it. I like the game. I love the game. Again, I'm vested in the game. I'm not burnt out on the game. I don't have franchise fatigue. I have frustration with the way they're handling and showing a lack of respect towards the players. Now, with all that said, with everything that continues to happen with the day D1 dungeon, the day one dungeon today, the day one issues with the new season, the season day one last season, the day one issues with the last day one dungeon, this is a repeatable thing. You see a pattern here. Let me ask you this. What kind of faith does that put in the consumer that's wanting to go buy, that they want us to go buy Lightfall, when all we know is the chances are we're going to have some errors on that first day? Because most people are like that I were talking to in our stream about tonight. They're like, I wait a few hours. I don't even bother touching the game till the next day. I know it came out today. I don't care about day one stuff. I'm going to play it the next day so I don't have to worry about it. That's a problem. I shouldn't have to worry about it. I remember growing up day one, man, I would stay up all night to midnight. I would go down to GameStop. I would get my copy of the game and I would get home and I would be up all night playing a game. But back then that was on a disc or a cartridge. They had to get it right. We didn't have downloads. We didn't have updates to fix crappy code. They had to do proper Q&A. They had to get it right. Now they got a little bit of flexibility today, but that's still no excuse for this type of repeated behavior by a game studio publisher. They know who the audience is. They know what their code is doing. We know what their code is doing. We know that it's not properly or adequately tested. And I challenge anybody to correct me on this one. Change my mind, because it's not. If it was, and we can go back to when they were with Activision Blizzard and they had proper coding and Q&A teams, or proper Q&A teams to check the code and all that stuff before it went out, we didn't have these type of messages. We didn't have these type of consistent errors every day there was new content introduced. So again, those are my questions. Those are my concerns. What are your thoughts on it? What are your thoughts on the new dungeon? I enjoy the dungeon. I'm going to run it again. We're probably going to farm it. And again, probably by this time, Tuesday next week, I'll probably be back to playing just on Tuesdays. There's plenty of other games coming out. I have plenty of other things to do. And people are like, well, you just digested the content too much. Not really. I probably logged between the two characters 6 total hours. That's not a ton of game time to get my guys to 1593 base, I think 1585 or something, 1584. I'll give it 2 weeks and I'll be base light at 1590 and whatever the artifact's at. I just need to get to season 100 or plus 15 and I'm ready for GMs. Then I can do whatever I want and take as much time off from the game and go play something else, which is what I'm going to do. And it's because I don't want to deal with all the bugs. I love the game, but I don't want to get error coded out. I don't want to get in the middle of an activity. I want to go for a solo flawless dungeon in this one, but I'm really worried I'm going to get an error code and I'm going to get towards the end and it's error code me out and I'm going to have to start all over. So again, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. You guys are great. I again love Destiny. I'm looking forward to playing it more. Let me know. Talk to you guys later. Hope you have a great weekend.